Hello and welcome to the demonstrational video on the brand new Laika H4012DS. So we'll run around the outside and then we'll show you all the controls there, and then we'll go on to the inside. So making our way around the vehicle, then we have just one door on the front of the vehicle, which is this one here. So with that open, then the bonnet catch is just located just here. So that opens up the bonnet, so I'll pull that. As you can see, this has got blinds that pull across, so these are to blank off the for night blinds. These blank off the side windows, and there's one that pulls down from the top, but we'll deal with those when we're inside. But yeah, so let's move on to the bonnet. So under here then, I'll just show you the main things. So with it being an A-class conversion, it's not got the traditional bonnet, but the bonnet catch is just there, so you just reach in underneath the bonnet there and pull the yellow lever. So under here then, pretty much the same layout as it normally would be. We have coolant, brake fluid, engine oil. I think there is still a dipstick. Doesn't appear to be a dipstick, so it must be one of the automated ones that tells you on the dash if your engine oil is low. To gain access to the washer fluid, you do have to fill it from this here, so it's piped through into the bottle there, and that's the washer fluid bottle just there. To close the bonnet, just needs a firm press in the centre once you've closed the lid down. Okay, so moving on around this side of the motorhome, then we have the fuel fill points. So you've got your AdBlue, which is required on this model to make it past the emissions. So there's a warning on the dash to tell you when that's required. It does count down to tell you how many miles are left before it needs refilling. Don't let that become empty, otherwise you will go into limp home mode. And then your diesel fuel, you need the engine key for that to be filled. Here we have a vent that is for the boiler, so what that does is if it's being run on gas, then you will see gas exhaust fumes coming from here. It's just steam and you'll see it building up on here, particularly in cold weather. Nothing to worry about, so that needs to be just kept free of debris. There's just a locker underneath that with a light switch, so you've got access right the way through there. And for larger, longer items, so that's just a locker, storage locker. Moving on, we have the gas flow system, which the customer requested that we fitted to this vehicle. So this is a refillable system. So you switch the gas on by turning the knob on each bottle anti-clockwise and clockwise to close it. This is a changeover valve, so what that does is it will allow you to select the bottle of choice. So if you turn it that way, obviously you're using the left bottle, this way for the right bottle. There is a marker on here to tell you how much gas you've got in each bottle. They're not deadly accurate, but it's a brief indication showing you where you're up to. This does have a crash, what's called a crash valve on it, so if it senses that there's an impact, this little yellow tab will come out and pop out, so it cuts off the gas supply to the motorhome. To reset that, you need to push that in, and there's a little tool to do so, or you can just use an Allen key or a small screwdriver. Push that in and turn it anti-clockwise, I think it is, and that pushes that back in and resets the crash safety valve on that on the regulator. So that's a pressure regulator, so you don't need any further regulation of pressure. Above that we have the external shower socket that's fitted to this motorhome. So what happens there is this is the shower head, which is provided with the vehicle. So the shower head itself has got a little trigger on the top. You press that trigger in there and then that allows the water to flow. To put that into the socket, you can see it's got like a sort of a butterfly type fitment. It just pushes in and turns around, and you can see there's a dial for if you turn it further to the left, you're going to get more hot water. Just as a further note with the gas, to fill it, you just take off that cap and screw in the filler head, which is at the filling station, into this here. There are adaptations to that. If you go into some of the European countries, they have a different type of filler, and all those kits are in there, just in the garage in the back there. Okay, so next to the shower head we have the toilet compartment. That is emptied via this cassette. So to open that, just press the buttons in, slide the cassette out by pulling this handle up. There's an indication inside to tell you when this is full, and so to empty this, you slide the nozzle across like so, unscrew the cap off the end, and then turn it upside down and pour the liquid away from the nozzle. As you're doing so, press this button in here. It lets air in as the liquid is going out, and it makes it a smooth process to get rid of the waste. It stops it glugging. This requires a toilet chemical, so either blue liquid chemical or green sachets. To administer the chemical, you slide this cover back, open up that blade, pour the desired amount of chemical in with a little bit of water in the bottom once you've rinsed out this. So empty it out, rinse it, fill it full of fresh water, and then re-administer the chemical into here. To put this back in, make sure that that is facing that way, otherwise it won't go back in. Slide the cover back on and slide it back into position. This does have a handle on it so that you can lift that up, and it's got wheels there to wheel it off to the disposal point that you'll find on the site. So to put it back in, make sure the handle's back in position like that. Slide the wheels into the little runners, and that's the cassette back in position. This is where the mains electric goes into the motorhome, so a cable is required to go into there. On the end of the cable, it's got like a little lid. You lift the lid up, the lid slides into the top there. To release it, you press that button down, and then that'll allow you to release the cable. This is where the water is filled up, so this is your fresh water. Again, you need the key, the motorhome key for that. So put the key into there, turn it anti-clockwise, then turn the cap itself anti-clockwise. That will allow you to take it out, to put it back in, turn it clockwise, and then turn the key clockwise. Here we have the garage. So we've got carpets, cab carpets. There's a mat there for the door. All the instruction manuals are in this grey package here. We've already covered the shower head there and the adapters for the gas system. That is the box for the Wi-Fi that the customers asked us to have fitted. This is the details of the tracker. We had to refit a solar panel, but that's the regulator box for that. We have the Zentek reversing camera and satellite navigation box with instructions and all the accessories for the oven, including the shelves and the grill pan. So we've got the carpets in here. These are the backs for the chairs that are required to make this seating arrangement into a seat belted seat. So that's where they're stored. The middle cushion here that goes in between the two beds. So that will make it into one large bed if required, but that'll be more obvious when we go inside. We've got storage in these lockers here and a light switch for the strip lighting that's there. On the back panel, that's where the camera, the twin lens camera, is mounted. You can probably just see it there. If water is stagnating on the lens, it will distort the image, so just make sure, well, you can't really make sure it's clean, but if you see a distorted image, it's probably because the lens has just got wet. If it drips off, then it'll come back into focus. So here on this side of the garage, we have again just access to lockers. There's a main socket in here, and there's a heat vent to draw heat from the main section of the motorhome. This is the waste outlet. So what you do with this is you press the button down, and that will it'll open a drain on the waste water tank, and drain all the water out of that. To close it again, you just simply press that back up, and that closes the valve and will prevent the water draining from it. The wastewater is drained from underneath the motorhome, and the tank is just there, so that is where the waste water will come out from. On most sites, what you do is you sort of, if it's on a super pitch, then you just position yourself so that it's constantly open. You can leave that open. If you need to drive over the grid, and it's usually like a cattle grid system, if you think it's between your rear wheel and the entrance to your garage, so if you're lining it up, that's where you need to position yourself to empty it out. On the top here we have an awning, and there is a separate video on our YouTube channel that shows you how to operate the awning. But basically the winder is in the garage. There's like a hook on the end of the winder that goes into that receptacle eye there, and you just wind that out. Okay, so moving on along, we have the fridge vents. What this does basically is it draws cool air in at the bottom and expels warm air at the top. In really hot conditions it needs to do that, otherwise the fridge will overheat. So just ensure that that's kept free of debris. Sometimes if you're close up to another van, it can't vent properly, so just make sure that those are kept clear. You can buy winter covers for those, so that in really breezy conditions you don't get well, the wind blowing through the vents basically. Here we have the external gas outlet. So if you've got an external barbecue or even a gas heater or any external gas appliance, that's where you can tap into the supply of gas from your bottles on the other side. You do require a little bayonet fitting, like a tiny little metal tube that fits into there, and then your flexible hose that you would require to go onto your gas appliance goes onto the other end of that little metal hose. We've got those in the shop. Okay, that completes the outside with the exception of this little locker here, which I'll just open. So this again, it's just access to that long locker that we saw on the other side. Okay, so moving on into the motorhome then. Probably just start at the front and work my way towards the back. I've taken the cushions off here because there's something important to look at in that section there. Okay, so we'll start at this control panel here. So we have the main control panel here. To switch the whole thing on and off, it's this button here. It does give you a quick overview in this mode here to show you what's going on. So leisure, battery, time, temperature, and that's telling you that your waste tank is empty. Well, yeah, so you've nothing in the waste tank. So if you scroll through these buttons here, so this is telling you about that's your waste tank, so indicated by that's your fresh tank, indicated by the fact there's no drain on the bottom of it, so we've got no water in. That's your waste tank, so that'll give you percentages should it have any waste water in there. And that's here is your battery condition. So if you press that button, so it's telling you that is your leisure battery. That's the most important one really. So we're drawing 6.5 amps and it's 2.3 volts. The engine battery's not got any draw across it, and it's at 12.6 volts. You can program it here, so you can set the time. You can set the numerals, so that if you want it in 24 hours, etc., etc. This is explained in the instruction manual, and it's fairly straightforward, so I'm just giving you a quick overview. That is the lighting, so your habitation lighting, so like the light that's there, if you were to press that button, all the lights would go out. This is your water pump. Okay, so when you fill up with fresh water, like where I showed you how to fill it from outside, it's important that you prime the system basically. So you've got a tank full of water that needs pumping through all the pipe work into the boiler, through the rest of the pipe work, and then out of your taps. So in order to get water out your taps, that must be switched on. What you do to prime the system then is you switch the pump on there, which we just talked about. Open up your taps on both hot and cold. So do it on hot first. Open it up on hot. Wait until you get a pure flow of water coming out of your tap, and then you know that all the pipe work and the boiler is full of water. So there's no point switching your boiler on if it's not full of water. You're just heating thin air. So yeah, it's priming the system basically. So do it on hot, then do it on cold. Exactly the same system. Wait until you get a pure flow of water coming out of your tap, and you must do that on the shower as well, because obviously there's pipes leading to that, and also on the sink in the toilet area as well. And then you've primed the system, you can then switch the boiler on. So just quickly going back to this panel, that's your external awning light. That is auxiliary, and I'm not 100% sure what that does. It doesn't appear to affect the draw. We'll come back to that. The Truma control panel here is your heating and heating of hot water. So to switch this on, you press this button in here. So press the button in. I just switched it off. Okay, so main control panel here. This is the temperature control for the heating. So if you give the dial another press, it'll allow you to select your temperature. So I'm going to go back to off, otherwise we'll get a warning light saying that it's not ignited. So to go back to the main control panel, is this little back button here. Then the next one along is your water. So this is how you want your water heating: eco, hot, or boost. So eco is 40 degrees, boost, hot is 60 degrees. Boost will take all the power from the heating of the motorhome and dedicate it to heating the water. If it was me, I would just leave it on hot and just leave it at that basically. So let's go back to the main control panel. The next one along, and you're scrolling through these by turning this wheel here. The next one along is your power selection. So gas only, gas and 1 kilowatt of electric mixed, gas and 2 kilowatts of electric mixed, electric only on 1 kilowatt, electric only on 2 kilowatts. So they're the choices. If it is really cold and you want to heat up your water and your van fast, then put it on gas and electric at 2 kilowatts together. The reason for the selection of 2 and 1 kilowatts is that you may be on a low ampage site, and therefore you need to be conservative with the draw of power. So for example, if you're using other appliances and it's a low ampage site, you don't want to put this on 2 kilowatts and then switch a hairdryer on, for example, because it'll blow the fuse on the site. Next one along, you can just vent and have air blowing around, so without any heat. This one here will allow you to set the heating to come on at a certain time and go off at a certain time. I think you can do that twice a day. This will allow you to set your time, and then there's a settings function here. If you disconnect your gas supply or your electric supply while the heating is on, you'll get a warning symbol, a little warning triangle coming up here. If that's the case, then you need to scroll along, select the little warning triangle and press on it, and it'll reset. If that doesn't work, then there is a reset function within this here, which is this here. So you press reset and then it'll say INIT, which is initializing. Press that again and it'll reset the boiler. So a lot of people fall foul of that, but don't switch that off before you disconnect your electric and you'll avoid that problem. Okay, so going while we're on the boiler then, underneath this seat here, which I've taken the cushions off, is where the boiler is housed. It is very important that the boiler is drained in freezing conditions. If water's left in the boiler and it freezes, it'll expand, it'll crack the tank, and it's an expensive replacement. So with that in mind then, there's a little drain valve which is just here. Okay, so that It's thermostatic. If it senses that it's reached 6 degrees, it will automatically drop all the water out of the boiler if it senses that the boiler isn't switched on, so it's a safety feature. That is now in the open position. The closed position is this little diamond knob on top. It is horizontally, it's a bit difficult with one hand. Okay, so it needs to look like that to be closed, and then there's a little knob on the front, but little button that you press that in. That must be pressed in as well. So that is now closed and ready for operation. In cold weather, when it's been in storage, you'll probably see that it's gone to, the little buttons popped out. I'm going to leave this closed because it's not very cold today, and you're probably going to want to fill it up. So this seating group here, this little section goes like that, so that the passenger seat, if you've got the back rest in there for the passenger's legs go down there. To put it back into a seating group, you pull this forward and this flap goes over the top, and you can see there's a slit there where that goes into there like that, and then it's back into the seating group position. Your seat belts are mounted there, and the receiver is there for it, and that's exactly the same on this side. So that's the seating group back together. On the front passenger and driver's seat, to swivel the seat around, it's this little lever there, and that allows the seat to swivel around. And that's exactly the same on the driver's side. You've got your sat-nav system there, which is requires a little card that goes into there, which I'll put in while you're here or before you arrive. To get this seat down, to get the bed down, so the A-class bed down, the seats must be lowered down. And to do that, you just give quarter of a turn on this dial here, and the same on the driver's side. That allows the seats to go down, and then the bed can be dropped down above that. Okay, so that's the seats down, and then to get the bed to come down, just tricky with one hand, so you pull that handle down like that, and then that reveals the A-class bed. You do need to take those cushions off the side, but the bed then drops down to its lowest position. You've got lighting up here and curtains for privacy. Okay, so moving on towards the back of the motorhome then. This particular customer has asked us to fit the Wi-Fi system. The passwords for the Wi-Fi are on the back of the battery, I think. So the way that you do this is you just unclip the cover, take the battery out, and the passwords are all there for it. The SIM card goes into there as well. Comes with a SIM card, but it's up to you whether you want to put your own SIM card in there. Fridge, it can open both sides like so. To switch the fridge on, press the wheel in the centre. Okay, so it's a three-way fridge this, so you can run it on gas, electric, or auto, or on 12 volts. So to select your power sources, you're just turning this wheel. So you've got gas, mains electric, and 12 volt. The 12 volt only works when the engine is running. It uses its power from the alternator. Automatic will automatically select the most relevant power source. It'll look for mains electric first, then gas, and then 12 volt. So to come out of that menu, it's the back button. You can select your temperature control. So on a really hot day, you don't want the fridge to be so you want the fridge to be running at the highest temperature on a hot day. On a really cold day, to prevent it from freezing up, which it will do, you want it on the lower settings. So that's your temperature control. Okay, it will bleep to tell you that if your power source is interrupted, whether it be gas or electric, then it will bleep at you and tell you, and there'll be a flashing warning light. To switch it off, it's the centre of the wheel again. Shower with dividing door, straightforward enough. The toilet, to use this, basically, you lift the lid, and this little lever here, you slide that across to open and close the blade which we talked about that was on the cassette itself. And to flush it, then it's that button on the top there. When the cassette's full, there's a little indication that tells you that it's full on that LED there. Make sure that the blade is closed while you're travelling, otherwise you'll get the toilet waste sloshing around in the centre, which you don't want. The bedding arrangement, this board goes into the centre here, and the cushion that was in the garage sits on top, and that creates a larger bed if you don't want the two singles. Wardrobe and chest of drawers. The step pulls out like so, and there's a little catch either side to get that back into its housing. The freshwater drain, so the freshwater tank, again, don't leave this with water in it in winter and freezing conditions. It will it'll damage the tank, it'll freeze and damage the tank. To drain that down, it's a turn on this wheel here. You'll hear it click there, and that'll drain it down to 20% of its storage capacity. And then if you turn it a further turn, and you'll hear it click again, that is fully drained. So there's two positions on that. To fully close it, just turn it round until you feel it finger tight. Okay, so I think that concludes everything. I think I've covered everything, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you may have on the day that you collect. So we look forward to seeing you when you collect this lovely new Laika motorhome.